remember when I first started learning about astrology, one of my teachers told me that Jupiter transits were like the ice cream transits, that when we had a Jupiter transit, it meant that everything was smooth sailing from here on out. But as I started watching Jupiter transiting my own chart and watching it transiting the charts of other people, I thought, wait a minute, this doesn't actually seem right, because Jupiter is supposed to be a planet of expansion and luck and opportunity. But how come half the time it seems like Jupiter blows everything up? Jupiter doesn't make it better. In fact, sometimes it feels like Jupiter makes it worse. So this is a planet that I watch. And I always tell people in readings now that Jupiter is a very mixed bag. You really don't know what you're going to get with Jupiter. But if we back up and we look at the archetype of Jupiter and how it lands in mythology, how that Jupiter energy is actually meant to be a teacher, right? And not all teachers are coming in with the load of goodies and just handing it to you. In fact, most teachers are not. Most teachers may say, look, there's a reward at the end of the road, or you might get this treat after you've completed the task. But before you can get to the treat, you have to do the thing. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm Natha Perkins of Electra Astrology. And if you like my style, you can work with me privately. This is a good time to book a reading because there is so much intensity in the air, in the collective, which means there's intensity in your own system. And I'm teaching astrology not just as an astrologer saying, hey, here's the sun sign, here's what Jupiter means, but bringing you into the realm of these archetypal energies that exist within you. Jupiter isn't just a planet out there, and the planets aren't controlling us from up above. We embody each of these archetypes in our own system, and we are impacted by the movement that the planets are doing in the sky. But if your point of being here on this planet at this time is to evolve personally, spiritually, etc., then understanding how these archetypes show up in you and how you may be acting them out, projecting, transferring, and all of that stuff that we do as humans, especially when we don't want to grow, we make it somebody else's fault. We want to understand that, because with understanding comes truth, and with truth comes evolution. And that's what we're doing here. If you're listening to this, you're here at this time on this planet to do a life of evolution. So you can find me at electraastrology.com, and we're talking about Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter has just entered Cancer. And if we look mythologically at Jupiter, we know that he is the god of the sky. He's Zeus. Now, he's a very big, powerful energy. Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system. It is a gas planet, and it is ruling the sign of Sagittarius, which is higher education, higher knowledge. Sagittarius is about human information and philosophies, religions, etc. This also rules institutions like university, the way that we aspire to keep learning through the course of our lives. We learn through education, traveling, through understanding other people, reading philosophies, understanding religions. There's all of these ways, and they all relate to interacting in some way with other people primarily, but also interacting with the world. Now, this is different energy than Pisces, although Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. Bigger, higher level information, but it has a much more spiritual feel to it. And we've been dealing with a lot of Pisces energy over the last few years. Neptune was in Pisces starting in 2011, and Saturn has been moving through Pisces. It's finally out now, although both Saturn and Neptune are going to have to go back into Pisces for a few months this winter. So we're not finished. We still have the North Node in Pisces. So one of the big things with Pisces, and you've heard me talking about this if you listen to my other talks, Pisces is teaching us huge, profound lessons about fear and about how we relate to fear. So if Pisces is an archetype of expansion, particularly spiritual expansion, sounds great. Yeah, like take me on a journey, connect me with God, teach me about higher power, tune me into my empathy and my compassion so that I can understand this universe, not just from the human perspective, but from the God perspective. That sounds great. But before we can get there, we have to face a lot of fear because it is unknown. We don't know what's out there. We don't know what God is. We don't know what the future brings. We don't know if we're going to be safe and secure. And that is the spiritual journey. We have to learn how to keep coming back to ourselves, to our breath, to our relationship with our higher power, to trust that all will be okay, that all will be well, even. But we have to relax the nervous system. We have to get out of our human desire to always be in there meddling and fixing everything. So with Virgo across from Pisces, and I've done some great talks on Virgo and Pisces, you should listen to them. They are under Astrology for Awakening on YouTube. This is such a good archetype to understand because we have Virgo that says, I have to do it. I have to fix it. I have to problem solve it. And in fact, when I do those things, I get a lot of approval, get a lot of accolades, a lot of pats on the back from people. But Virgo is very exhausting energy because it's that energy of head down, always moving, always fretting, always stressing, always problem solving. When we are always problem solving, we are losing touch with faith, with trust. We're actually not leaning into our spiritual connection because we're leaning into our human connection and that busy mind that says you can think about this and you can do it the right way and you can solve this problem. Okay, so take a minute right now as we sit. And I'm recording this in June of 2025, and it is heavy out there. It's really heavy. Think about your own desire to do something, to problem solve, and to look good doing it, right? Like, well, I want to be of service. I want to be helping. And my mind tells me this is the way I have to help. I have to get in there. Now, Virgo also has a strong sense of righteousness. I'm right and you're wrong. I know how to solve the problem and you don't. So take a deep breath and think about the part of you right now that needs to be right, that feels that you know the right answer and that you can do something somehow with all of your effort and your brain power to solve a big problem. And if you're like me, and we're not all that different from one another, none of us are. If you're like me, this energy can get very loud and it can get very strong. And it is exhausting and it takes me right out of my connection to trust and to surrender. And in fact, it also takes me out of my connection to my gut and my intuition. So knowing that, and now we take our attention back up to the archetype of Sagittarius. Jupiter, remember, rules both Pisces and Sagittarius. Jupiter, as a ruler of Sagittarius, also gets very righteous. Imagine the pastor on the pulpit preaching fire and brimstone. If you do not follow the rules of our God, you're going to hell. This is how we do it. This is what a good person does. Or maybe it's the university professor on the stage of the auditorium talking about the teachings of some great mind. Okay. Well, this is what we know. This is what this person has taught us, etc. So we imagine that Jupiter as a ruler of Sag is also a part of us that can get very righteous about what we believe. And Sagittarius and Jupiter relate to belief systems. And a lot of times our human belief systems, which fall under the realm of Sag, are outdated. We learn something in school, or we take some trip, or, plant medicine is very popular right now. Somebody learns something under the influence of plant medicine, and then they take that and they cement it in their consciousness, and it becomes their belief system. It can happen with your religions. It can happen with your cultural beliefs, with the things that were passed down to you in your family. So take a deep breath And again, just tune in to the part of you that has really strong beliefs about what is right and what is wrong. And just honor that part. That is a protective part, as is the part of you that feels like you can effort and scurry and meddle and fix enough to make everything feel safe again. And we can also honor the part of us that just feels fearful. I don't understand the future. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm trying to trust and I'm having a hard time because I don't know. I might trust and nothing good will come of it. So I'm bringing all of this into the conversation because now we're looking at Jupiter changing signs, which it does every year approximately. You can look back to 2013. That was the last time Jupiter moved into Cancer. Now, Jupiter brings the energy of learning, of belief systems, of exploration, of higher education, and also of spirituality, lofty ideas, things that we didn't learn when we were very young, when we were learning the facts and the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. This is higher level education. This is stuff that we have learned through experience in our lives. The belief systems that were implanted into us through school, culture, religion, family, etc. And usually when we are in that place of, I believe it to be true, and this is my conviction, that's pretty big energy. That's pretty strong, as is the part of us that wants to know and wants to explore. So we look at Jupiter and we say, this is really big energy. It can propel us into greatness, into wisdom. It is the energy of the sage, the one that people consult with to understand. So it is also the energy of understanding. However, it is also the biggest planet and it is a gas planet. And we know that gas can burn out of control, that anything that's big dominates. And Jupiter has 95 moons. So imagine that Jupiter has a lot of emotions. We have one moon for planet Earth, and think of how emotional we get. So imagine Jupiter with 95. And now Jupiter enters the sign of Cancer. Jupiter is exalted there. Why? Because it's the sign of the moon. It's emotions. It's emotional expression. So then we want to look at the archetype of Cancer. Well, what is that? That relates to mothering, to our memories, to our family of origin, our lineage, our ancestry. Okay, so think of everything that you carry just from that alone. Experiences that you didn't even have yourself, a nervous system that you did not build yourself as you were growing in your mother's body, memories that just came from you being thrown into this family. You were born into this family that had all of this baggage and probably a lot of beauty as well. And then you are an emotional being. You are very impacted by the moon itself. We have moon cycles when we're female. And we know that the moon impacts the waters on the planet every single day, causes them to bulge and contract, which is why we have high tide and low tide. Imagine that it's causing the water in our own bodies and our own cells to bulge and contract. Half of the moon we can't ever even see. This dark side of the moon, this dark side of our own emotions. And I don't mean dark like bad energy. I just mean unseen. Think of everything that comes along with you as an emotional human. The part of you that feels, that empathizes, that feels compassion, anger, rejection, hurt feelings, that feels like you need to self-protect, that feels love, that feels that richness, the human richness of experience. So take a deep breath and tune into that part of you, the part of you that feels. And now we talk about Jupiter moving into that energy. Jupiter that makes everything bigger, that expands us, that helps us to understand more, that brings us meaning. But because Jupiter is a mixed bag, sometimes it's going to bring us amazing emotions. It's going to make our hearts swell over this next year. It's going to make us feel love on a deeper level than we have felt before. Help us to understand our history, help us make connections and close loops around our family, our beliefs around our family. It's going to feel like an adventure, an emotional adventure, and it's going to be tough because it is going to blow things out of proportion. It is going to make people very emotionally reactive, including you. So if Jupiter acts like a magnifying glass and makes everything bigger, especially the problems that need to be solved, if we don't know that there's a problem, how are we even going to begin to solve it? So that's one of the things Jupiter does for us, is it shows us in relief what needs to be solved so that we can expand. Jupiter is about expansion. So know that as Jupiter is in Cancer over this next year, there's going to be a lot of emotional expansion and a lot of magnification of what is dysfunction. So just take a deep breath, because you are fully capable of doing this work. You have done an incredible amount of work so far. If you look back to 2013 and everything that was going on in that year in terms of your emotional growth, maybe this relates to your own mother. It could relate to mothering your children, to mothering yourself. It could be about family. It could be about safety and security. So the moon rules the fourth house, and that is where we go to retreat. So it's big. It's a lot of energy. And now I want to bring in some of the current events. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I have the USA chart pulled and I have the transit chart pulled. So what I want you to look at is right over here. We can see that Jupiter just moved into Cancer. It's at 0 degrees and it is edging up on the Jupiter in the USA's chart. Okay. So what does that mean? That means the United States is having a Jupiter return. We're also looking at is the United States just finishing up a Chiron return. We are just finishing up, and these are in the last few years, but time is not linear. We're just finishing up a Pluto return. There's a lot going on in the chart of the United States. We also see the South Node right now in the sky at 22 Virgo is on Neptune in the chart of the United States. And we all have our own unique natal chart, but certainly if you are living in the United States right now, you have this chart as well. So there's a lot going on. As I mentioned earlier, there's a ton of tension in the field and it's really confusing and we don't really know what is happening. Now, we easily go into our Jupiterian energy of like, I do know what's happening. I do know what's happening and I want to fix it. I have opinions. I have beliefs about what's going down. And I want to do my Virgo thing of coming in and doing the fixing, solving the problem. But this is interesting because the South Node in Virgo says, hey, for the next 18 months, while the South Node's in Virgo, it's not about doing all the things to fix all the problems. That's what we're leaving behind. We're actually looking to leave behind that black and white thinking of I'm right, you're wrong. This is how we fix it. That's the problem. And we are looking to move into our North Node Pisces energy, which is like, oh, wow, there's a lot going on here. And in fact, it's pretty overwhelming. And I am likely to go straight into fear because I don't know, fear because it's confusing and I feel powerless. However, the North Node in Pisces is about evolution. In this case, the spiritual evolution. And since 2011, and especially the last 3 years, we've had Neptune and Saturn in Pisces, and we've had to work with our fear, had to look at our being able to trust. When we don't know what's going on, what do we have? And so think about this. We're also watching Uranus getting ready to move into Gemini. We have seen, even in the last year, and especially the last 6 months, a huge uptick in AI and how AI is used. There really aren't dependable ways to know at this point what is real and what is not. Is the news reporting the real news? We don't know. Does social media have what's really going on? We don't know. Are we watching something that's happening in real time, or are we watching an AI created video of something? We don't know. Are we listening to somebody's opinion, or is it a fact? We don't know. So give a deep breath to the part of you that thinks it knows, but ultimately doesn't know. It's hard to not know. And so what do we have? What can we trust? We can trust our gut. Now we've watched Neptune and Saturn move into Aries. So we know that Aries energy is about trusting the gut. It's the gut instinct. It's the boundaries. But each side has a shadow, and the shadow of Aries is impulsive action, acting without thinking, defense, maybe unnecessarily. So we want to take that into account because we are humans here and we're all trying to work this out together in our own unique way. So one of the things that I'm getting at here is that we are in a time period where it is unclear what's really going on. There's so much conflicting information. There's intentional information overload, and there's weaponized information. So no matter which side of whatever conflict, whatever huge political thing is happening, and there's so many of them right now, whatever side you're on, beware that there is intentional confusion being thrown into the field, and that there is also intentional fear mongering being put into the field. Now, depending on how you deal with fear and how you deal with information overload, you might find yourself really emotionally activated. Okay, Jupiter's in Cancer. Of course, we're emotionally activated. Our sense of safety, no matter what side of any issue you're on, your sense of safety is probably feeling threatened. And Jupiter puts a light on the things that are problematic so that we can solve them. So what we might want to do is to go big picture, and that is Aquarius. So imagine that Aquarius is the collective, and Pluto is in Aquarius. Aquarius says, solve the problems for the group. Okay, so it's very easy to go big picture, and we see a lot of people going big picture, right? I am personally going to help solve this massive problem for the group. Whether it's from a war, it's deportations, whatever we're talking about. I want to solve a big problem. We are working on the same problem that exists in here. As above, so below. When we see war and anarchy, anger, outrage, fear, and hatred, and we see that as a societal problem, we know that each of us carries all of those within us in some way. Even if it's just your inner critic being an absolute dictator. And most of us have inner critics that are pretty mean. Most of us have minds that are overactive, that are completely fear-based. A lot of us have old emotional baggage, and that includes resentments and hatreds. So the solution, we don't know what the solution is. Nobody knows, but we know that it's really messy, and that it's almost impossible for one single person, me, you, to change the world. But what we can work on is doing the personal work, doing our own work around anger, boundaries, resentments, fears, righteousness, old outdated beliefs that have become crystallized. All right, so just take a deep breath into that part of you, or those parts of you that are messy, that have work to do. If only you could do the right thing. If only everybody else would do the right thing. If only something or someone out there was different, then we would be okay. Those are beliefs that you developed in a childhood where the adults were the ones making the decisions, and they were probably making bad decisions. They probably were not taking in the needs of the group, or they were not looking at those needs through a compassionate lens, we'll put it that way. So what do we do as we find ourselves in all of this chaotic energy? And even if you're not watching the news, And you always hear me say, I wouldn't watch the news if I were you. It is fear programming. But even if you're not watching the news, you're still feeling it. You're empathic. We are all swimming in the same water. If there's an oil spill in the water, eventually we're going to start tasting oil. So this is a call to become really intentional with, first of all, what you're allowing in your field. Stay away from the fear programming, because right now we have no way of knowing what's real. It's just like watching a movie. It's like watching Jurassic Park and being fearful that there's dinosaurs that are going to come out of the forest while you're hiking. That doesn't mean that there aren't real dangers, right? Mountain lions definitely come out of the forest here in Colorado when we're hiking. But do we need to be afraid of dinosaurs? No. So this is about being very discerning about what you believe, about what you are taking in as the truth. Understanding that we're all learning. Nobody knows exactly what the truth is. The only way that we can get to the next step is by tuning into, first of all, our gut. Okay, that's our Aries energy that says, this is what my gut says. My gut says this is not right. This is not okay. I need to work with that feeling in my body that says something's not okay. And it's not about solving a problem out there. It's about literally working with what's happening in this very present moment around your fear, around your gut. How can you take care of yourself in this moment? Do you need to breathe? Do you need to get outside? Do you need to drink some water? Do you need to eat something? Do you need to call a good friend and have a talk? Small ways of self-support go a long way, I would say even farther than going out and doing something huge out there. If you feel the need to go out and do something huge out there, by all means, follow your gut. But know that the most potent work that you can do right now is in working with your own stuff. Looking at your own history. That's Cancer. Jupiter in Cancer. Looking at the history. Why am I so triggered? What does this remind me of? Do I need to go back and soothe my inner child a little bit? And remind my inner child that I am safe, I am secure, I will take care of you. And then focus as well on your relationship to your higher power. As the North Node is in Pisces, this is about using your intuition. So we're making our gut and our intuition a partnership. And then we're also bringing in the emotional understanding, not the emotions themselves, right? We can be totally triggered and want to scream or holding on to resentment or want to hide. Okay, so we're not listening to our immediate emotional reactivity. We're going underneath that and we're saying, what is this about? Where did this start? What does this remind me of? So you're this beautiful, self-contained kingdom, a self-contained environment. And we want to make sure that our kingdoms are functioning as well as possible. We look around the United States right now and we say, wow, this kingdom is very dysfunctional. No matter what you believe, this kingdom is very dysfunctional. There's a lot of problems. But rather than trying to go out and personally solve all the problems of the world, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to post that, and I'm going to rage about this, start with what's happening in here, because we're working on holding the center. It is more valuable to be the energy that holds the center, that holds the space, that is the refuge of sanity, than it is to be out amongst all of the chaos, perpetuating the fear, getting stirred up with outrage, being angry, wanting to hurt somebody in retaliation for them hurting somebody else. It's not logical. As a spiritual light worker, you are here to hold the centered point. If you are just another person that's out there running and screaming, we go into groupthink. right? Think of the times in your life where something has happened and you're looking around and saying, what do I do? What do I do? And everybody's panicking. And then you panic. Or the times when you look around, something is happening, you're panicking, and you see somebody who's not panicked and they're standing there, they're assessing, they're breathing, and you say, well, if they're not panicking, maybe I don't need to panic either. This is a message of neutrality. It is to remind you of the benefit of being neutral. It doesn't mean that you can't have your opinions and you can't take your actions. But doing that from a place of ground, of sanity, of presence. I've tuned into my gut and I know what it's saying. And I've tuned into my intuition and I know what it's saying. And I'm with my breath. I'm rooted in this present moment. I am not emotionally reactive because we're not going to solve problems from the same energy that they were created with. We don't solve anger, hatred, war by holding anger, hatred, and going to war. All right. I hope this was helpful. And I hope, if anything, it just reminds you periodically through the days and through the months that follow that coming back to your center, coming back to your ground is really going to be the most effective way to navigate through very tricky waters. But we're here, we're holding space, we are gridding the planet with the energy of truth and of groundedness. All right, I hope this was helpful. I shall talk to you all soon.